If any of my videos would start a whiskey riot, it would be this one. The passion of the peat runs high, with some even changed their names to embrace the peat life. Looking at you, Frank, that actually felt quite menacing. While there are different peated expressions across all of whiskey, I think it's safe to say that for peat, Islay is pretty much king.
Islay whiskey has a distinctive flavour.
Well, the secret of the Islay whisky is the peaty water and the peat, which we can get on the island. That makes the Islay whisky what it is. It's been sort of tradition in Ireland to make whisky for those hundreds of years, and then gradually has built itself up. Islay whisky by itself is rather too powerful for most people.
However, there's still plenty of amazing unpeated bottles from the well-loved island, which don't worry, we'll get to. So join me, the whiskey slapper in the shirt and shades, as I list out my top 5 Islay whiskies, and as it's coming from me, you know it's true.
It's true.
Welcome back to Jeff Whiskey, I'm Jeff, chatting whiskey, let's crack on. Jeff Whiskey. Now I love Islay whiskey, and I'm very much partial for a good slice of peat in my pores. Now, like a few other folk, I can sometimes be hit with peat blindness, where those wonderful smoky notes disappear very quickly and can't really pull those out at all. There has been a few blind challenges where I've certainly made a fool of myself, where I was wrongly assumed some smoky big hitters, where they had no peat in it at all. I'm far from a professional. So this tier list has been really difficult, and I've been mulling over this, switching positions for over 2 weeks before I've even sat down behind the camera. And to you hardcore whiskytube lot, I'm holding the microphone. You know why.
When did you get so professional?
So I put a poll out to the Bottle Slap Club, which are my channel members, and a few weeks back to hear what video they wanted to see, and the vast majority wanted me to suffer as I sipped and ranked all the peated drams I had. I had to do this for you. Where possible, I've gone through all my Islay bottles and samples over the last couple of weeks to help build this list, including diving into my sample archive of dead bottles, which had to be done in the name of research.
For science, right?
But nothing says a good list without some rules, so let's get some parameters out the way. 1. It had to be a whiskey I've tried and made a record of trying. That means, sorry you Peat Bomb fans, there's no Octomore on this list, as simply, I've not tried it. And 2, I think there's only one rule. I've not really put that much thought into this. The hardest part is keeping it down to 5. I think I got it whittled down to maybe 15 bottles, but we'll just stick with my notes and see how I get on. Either way, I think it's time to crack on and get listing.
Well, it's about time.
Starting with number 5, Ardbeg Ugadal, or as my phone auto-corrected, Hugo Dole. This whiskey seemed to be the favourite of not just Ardbeg lovers, but peat fans, and when I first started my deep dive into whiskey around 2018, this was the bottle to have. Maybe that was just the reach of the whiskey vault.
That is some top shelf Oogdal. Oogdal. My Oogdal's so nuts.
And then, yeah.
Tell me about your Oogdal, John.
Funny enough, it was nearly a year ago now where I released my review on this bottle, which managed to include a bottle slap from Rex and Brianna.
Yeah.
I won't go into too much detail, as you can go back and watch that video, but even if I ever feel like I've moved away from this bottle, it always just pulls me back in.
Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in.
It's always a fantastic dram. It's a great expression of what a non-age statement Islay whiskey can be. But sliding on down to number 4, Port Charlotte 10-year-old. The core Islay expression for the enthusiast. This flagship Port Charlotte bottle was released back in 2018 and always feels a bit like, if you know, you know.
Now we know. Oh yeah, we know now. Now we know.
For me, this absolutely beats Laphroaig 10 and edges just in front of the Ardbeg 10-year-old, and one I certainly recommend. It can often be picked up and grabbed for a similar price to the Ardbeg as well if you hunt around, always look for bargains. It's an absolutely beautiful bottle. In fact, this one, it's not even open yet. So my last bottle must have gone in the recycling pretty swifty.
Nothing wrong with being a Swiftie. And it's not a cult.
Let's change that. That smells so good. Wait a minute, has my shirt been this unbuttoned the whole time? Gonna get censored. Where was I? This has got a real hefty peat to it, which is more grounded and earthy than like the medicinal Laphroaig, and just stunning liquid at 50% ABV. It's slightly salty, but plenty of like crushed biscuits and grass. It's like a little oaky. It's got a long, slightly spicy, slightly dry finish. But no spoilers for the rest of this list. But I think this is the best bottle from all of Bruichladdich. Fight me.
Come on, let's go! I'm right here!
Sliding on down to number 3. Kilchoman Bay. Kilchoman certainly is gaining traction and is a pretty strong fan base now. I know there's a very strong argument for their cask strength version of this, but I feel it really sings at the 46%. Interestingly, it seems there's often only 10-15 quid difference between the two in the UK, so if you're good at diluting and maths, may be able to get more bang for your buck with a cask strength. Either way, I just love this release, and I think I first tried it maybe back in 2019. I had no clue about Kilchoman, and this just blew me away, and it went straight on to my buy list. Funny enough, looking back, I bought my first bottle of both this and the Uigdal at the same time at Master & Malt back in early 2020, and it came to £67.95 for both of them. £34 for each of these feel like a fever dream.
Too late will be the cry when the man with the bargains has passed you by.
It's such a super clean, super fresh, slightly citric, sweet campfire peat with a little bit of that iodine note elbowing in. A lot of people seem to go for the Sanaig or the Lochgorm over this, but for me, this is the best and like truest expression of what Kilchoman is. Yeah, truly love this one and happy to have it as my third pick. Right, going down to the final two, which in truth, I found it a lot easier putting these two down than the rest of the list. So coming in at my number 2 of my top 5 Islay whiskies is an independent release of the Whiskey Baron's 3-year-old Stoischer. I'm not doing that flippy thing, it's got a glass cork and I just don't trust it. This is one that I tried to keep to the back of the shelf with plenty of guard whiskies in front. Every time I have a glass of this, it warms my mouth, it warms my belly, my heart, my soul, and I never quite prepared myself for how much I enjoy it. Like in truth, when I started pulling my bottles down for this, I forgot about this one, possibly because it's an indie or that the bottle just doesn't have that Islay look. But as soon as I spotted it and poured it for research, it was fixed in my number 2 place.
Hello, I'm number 2.
Nice to meet you, number 2.
This is my first and possibly only experience with Stoischer, and I fear nothing else will hit this high bar that I've set in my head. The notes on this is lots of sweet and tangy smoke, like if you set lots of those sherbet sticks on fire. Then, and I quote my tasting notes for this, a punch in the gob with umami smoke that really fills up the mouth.
That's what she said.
Michael, please. Please.
There's duck and plum sauce. It's a bit brothy. It's a bit ramen-y. It's like a tiny bit of cheese. All in this clean, malty caramel backbone and just a good heft of fresh, sweet smoke. It is the most expensive bottle on this list, but only by like a £5 or something. And I pray that it's still around when I break my bottle ban and need a replacement. Speaking of price, these top 5 bottles are all around similar to each other here in the UK. They span from around £45 to £65, which I certainly feel is the sweet spot for quality to cost. In fact, that could be a good topic for a future video. If it sounds good, let me know in the comments and do subscribe so you can see it pop up in your feed. Now, I've got a huge list of runners up, and for that tasty YouTube retention, let's fly through them before we get to number 1. Well, you could always skip forward to it anyway, but the honourable mentions are Ardbeg 10, a fantastic Caol whisky which did only just lose out to the Oogie, the Bruichladdich beer barley, one that has played on my mind since Glasgow Whisky Festival with that super cheese flavour.
He loves it.
I've been lucky to have maybe like 2-3 pours of it since, but as of that and the price, it misses out of this list. A couple of banging Lagavulins, of course a 16-year-old, if it was still at that £50 price tag, it would have pushed in the top 5, maybe even at £60, but sadly, it couldn't stay there.
You got greedy, Martin.
Then the special release 12-year-old from 2022, I think. It's one that I think about often, but 130 quid for the bottle, it's not made my shelf. Then zipping down to Laphroaig, the quarter cask is wonderful, wonderful stuff, especially for the price. Possibly one of the best value Islay whiskies. Then going to the Laphroaig Lore, I am gelling with this bottle. After a few pours where it didn't quite tickle my pickle, it's definitely my jam at the moment. Then rounding out the honourable mentions, a distillery I feel like I always overlook, Bunnahabhain. I felt like around 2019 their 12-year-old was a bit of a hype bottle, which has fallen short lately. I know having a duff bottle with a very rotten cork tainted it for me. That said, their Bunnahabhain Strurada, that'll do, is my favourite release from them.
Are you sure about that?
Well, excluding that Stoischer, which is one of their releases but under a different name and is like a completely different beast. But yeah, currently Asda in the UK has it for 27 quid and it's well worth it under £35. But now to the most anticlimactic finale, to the folk who watch me spew my thoughts on this channel, or the many others I've been fortunately invited on, this is a bottle I won't shut up about. My number 1 Islay Whisky is, I kind of want to do it like boxing announcement style. Is this picking me up or is this just weird? My number 1 Islay Whisky is Laphroaig 10 Sherry Oak Finish. This one. My whisky of the year way back in 2021. Nearly 3 years ago and it's still standing strong. I tried it as a sample in 2020 and now I'm on my second bottle of it, which there are a few bottles who have that honour. I think Port Charlotte 10 I just mentioned had that. Maybe there's like 3 bottles that have done that? Either way, this sweet, savoury, smoky, sensational delight really is my jam, and it tastes like burnt jam too. I won't beat the dead horse on my love for this bottle. Check out the full review for it, link up there, down there, somewhere. But this is just my list right now. I think I could revisit it year by year, make easy content, and just see what lands and what falls. I've also reached out to the other whisky folk to see what their list will be to try balance it out and not just get my thoughts. I'm currently gathering that tasty data from the Bottle Slap Club and I'll be releasing their picks soon, with a little bit of Jeff's judgment on the go. If you've enjoyed this review, slap a like. If you've hated it, a dislike. Subscribe to support me, and if you want to see more. And all that's left to say is, thanks for coming, and cheers to the next one. I definitely think the Port Charlotte is the most slappable bottle. I could really do with a stand right now. There you go. That's what you came for. Has been released since 2018 and like, if you've hated it, a dislike, subscribe.